Hey everyone, welcome to the HireMyVA Team and Business Building Podcast, brought to you by ugozi.com. And in this podcast and HireMyVA, we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking the bank. And of course, the bank that we talk about every week is your bank, not yours, Larry, not mine, but it's whoever's listening. Yeah. Hey, speaking of Dave, I'm Dave Braun, and I'm on with my usual partner in, I don't know, I have crime written down, but not crime. It's a crime we don't do more of this. But Larry Broughton, how are you here?
I'm good. And I'm on with my unusual partner. Handsome Dave Braun.
Yeah, I need to
describe me as usual partner. So
yeah.
You're young.
I need to get a haircut. Look at this, man.
Looking something.
Looking ragged. I just haven't had time. I'm so busy. Isn't that? This is going to lead into what we're talking about. When you're so busy, you can't go get a haircut. There's something wrong with that.
That's right. That's right. Dave, what's our topic today?
Okay. Our question is, how do I avoid burnout? And what do I do if I'm burned out, especially while still working? And that's part of the tough part on this. And, Larry, as we were working on this episode, going through it and talking about it, right, we were like, oh my gosh, there's just so many things that we can think of, so many items that we want to mention. And, we just can't get all of this into one episode, or else it'd be probably, really, really long. So we thought we'd break it up into two parts. So folks, stay tuned for part 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Dave, I think we ought to start out with this, that I have been burned out for sure. In my life more than once. I recognize that I have been approaching burnout for a long time in my life right now, if I'm being honest, right? It's been a long time, like multiple years since I've taken a vacation. I've had a lot of mental, emotional stress lately. And so I'll just say this, that if you're experiencing mental exhaustion or emotional stress, or you're feeling physically exhausted, you could be experiencing burnout or the warning signs of it. And that leads to fatigue, feeling disconnected, feeling worn out. Dave, burnout is really just a form of extreme, and I'm going to use this word intentionally, chronic stress that shows up and can manifest itself in really lots of dysfunctional ways. And I'm using those words intentionally because this is serious stuff, right? It really is. I've seen a couple of surveys during the last several months on this topic. So why have I been seeing those? Well, because prior to COVID, surveys were showing that about 43% of the American workforce felt like they were either experiencing or about to go into burnout, 43%, okay? The last survey that I saw, I think there were 2 different surveys in this one article, pointed to a survey that was done in late 2021 that showed that over half of the American workforce were feeling burned out, okay? Up from 43% prior to the COVID thing. So if you're experiencing burnout, it can feel, when you're in it, it can feel very difficult to get on track. Like you really feel desperate sometimes, but it's important to reset our minds and reset our bodies, because the long-term negative effects of burnout are serious. I mean, this is when heart attacks happen. This is where suicidal ideation happens. This is not a topic where you just blow it off, right? Your physical well-being is at risk here, right? And it can affect what happens. We get out, and it negatively affects the way we perceive ourselves. Okay, it reduces our sense of self-accomplishment. Here's a term, if anyone's been in therapy before, you start having disassociative behavior of your personality, right? You start to separate yourselves. It's really important then, as leaders and as business owners, as entrepreneurs, that we are able to recognize these signs, Dave, before like the train runs us over. We'd mentioned that the metaphor in our this episode that we did. But the same thing for your team members. Some of your team members are going to want to be heroes, and they're going to work themselves right into the freaking ground because, crying out loud, Larry's working this hard, Dave's working this hard. Maybe that's the standard for which I need to do everything, you know? And so I would just say that if you're feeling, and by the way, you need to look at this with your team members. If either you're feeling or you're recognizing that people are emotionally exhausted, right? They're cynical, right? So cynicism is part of disassociation, right? And when people are cynical, they're no longer really engaged in the organization. Burnout can manifest itself in ways and physically, like, you know, headaches and stomach problems and high blood pressure and, you know, muscle tension, or people they're lacking motivation, or their productivity plummets, or you start seeing team members or in yourself who were at one point highly confident, but now they're plagued with self-doubt and low self-esteem. That we're in a serious spot at that point, Dave. And then finally, where I feel like if you don't recognize this last thing, this is where like the suicidal ideation really starts to creep in. And that's when people feel like lonely and detached. Burnout is a serious thing, my friends, Dave. I'm glad that we're talking about this today. So with that background, Dave, unless you want to add something to that, I think we ought to get into like, how do we avoid all this stuff?
Yeah, and just recently.
Sorry, I pontificate there.
No,
but
that's great.
This is a serious issue. It's a serious issue.
Yeah, and there could be some cross between feeling burnout and actually being depressed. You know, it could be that as well, or I think burnout can really lead to depression if you're not doing something about it.
Sure.
And I know one of the telltale signs that I have experienced myself and seen lately in some folks is they get very irritable. And especially in business, if you start getting to a point where it's like you almost are cursing some of the customers that are helping your clients who are helping you pay your bills, then there's something wrong with that. Saying, oh my gosh, that person is just so picky. That person has called me again. They put in another help ticket. Oh my gosh, they're such a pain. You got to be careful that you're not doing that for every client. Now you may have a client or two that you need to fire, but you got to be careful and make sure you understand that if that's your normal response to everybody, or not. So
I like that comment, Dave, because we have had clients in our organizations, the different businesses, where the client was just ultimately we realized we didn't share the same core values.
Yeah,
that was the reason why everything they did, not everything. I'm being a little bit dramatic right now, but many things that they did just felt like nails on a chalkboard to us. And then when we got together as an executive team and said, okay, why is this happening? What's going on? We didn't share the same core values.
Yeah.
Right. And so it takes courage to fire a client sometimes, but sometimes it's the best thing you can do for the mental health of you and your organization.
That's right.
Sometimes when you fire bad clients, it opens the door for good clients to come in. I don't want to sound too California-ish, but you got to get that negative energy out of the organization. But I like your point, though. We need to be a little self-reflective and say, is this me projecting my own angst on this client? Or does the client really have a point? Like, yeah, we are falling short of, our performance. Maybe, we need to tweak our systems. We have to get intentional about analyzing this. Just because someone pisses us off one day, you shouldn't be reflexively just firing a client without analyzing your own navel a little bit.
Yeah, and I think typically the burnout is going to be where you're irritable at every client. And I think that's going to end up spilling over into your personal life too, that you're irritable with your kids, or you kick the dog, or, whomever, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll spill over into that. All right. So I think most people can kind of get a feeling of whether or not they're burned out. So maybe we can talk about ways to avoid it. What do you think, Larry?
Yeah. One of the things that's been really helpful for me, particularly in the last couple of years, is to lean into friendships and relationships I've got outside of my professional life, I guess I should say, because sometimes they give me perspective. Now, I'm careful with what I share with some friends because sometimes they don't have my point of view, and I don't want to spend my entire, interactions with them, giving them the background of it. But being around friends on a very regular basis creates an environment where I can share and just be myself and take the work uniform off. Sometimes it's a distraction, to be honest with you, sometimes, but it helps me recognize there's more to my life than just my business pursuits.
Yeah, and if you have some friends where it's kind of a safe place to share stuff, and I mean, this is what you and I do with a couple of guys. Just getting that toxicity, that stuff that we're feeling, verbalizing it kind of helps get it out of us and provides us a little bit of a temporary reprieve. But if we're able to verbalize it, and especially verbalize it to somebody else, we're able to hear it, and that leads to a potential new self-awareness with the opportunity for self-correction.
Exactly. Good point. With the opportunity of some self-correction. When you have these, I'm so apprehensive of using this term because it's so politically charged about safe spaces, but it is a safe environment, I guess. When you have those, you can actually start discussing some relationships that you might be struggling with, that might be bogging you down, that might be bringing some negative energy into your life. And those relationships might be team members, they might be clients, but they might be family members too. They might be love relationships that you're in. Years ago, I had a buddy of mine, his name is Rob, and I'm not going to give his last name, but his brother gave him advice that he shared with me about, you got to live your life in 24-hour compartments. You got to live, you got to separate your life. You got your professional life and your business life. And I thought that sounded so sage back then, Dave, so wise. It couldn't be further from the truth. It is so wrong, right? You really have to live your life integrally. I'm not pronouncing my words in an integral fashion. But I guess the point is, you've got to have someone that you can discuss these relationships with, because if I'm having a bad relationship with my love partner, that's going to affect my business life. If I'm having a tough relationship with you, Dave, my business partner, that's going to have an impact on my personal life. Right. Mm-hmm. So we've got to have someone that we can talk to, and then you got to have the courage to deal with them.
Well, and Larry, let me tell you on that really quick. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important. And we have it in all of our programs, is the whole health spider graph.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's,
maybe we can put a link. Can we put a link in our show notes?
Yeah, we need to do that. We need to do that. So it helps everybody to understand where they are rating themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 and all the different, the main different areas of life, the 8 areas that we've come up with. I mean, we've talked about it in the show notes in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's because all of these different aspects of ourselves spill over into other areas. Like if we're feeling crappy physically, it's going to affect our work performance. It's going to affect how we're, our relationships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I had someone tell me years ago when we were talking about this stuff, is like, I was talking about relationships. Dude, you need to be in therapy. Yes. The answer today is yes. The answer then was no. But I do think that having talk therapy does help a lot with burnout, because sometimes just getting this is where, whether it's professional therapy or from the wisdom from a mentor, from a wise friend, talking things through does sometimes give different perspective, Dave. And that's almost like taking the pressure off a little bit, deflating the tire a little bit. You know what I mean? By being able to talk things through with someone. And the reason I think that therapy is really important, because I do know the negative effects of burnout. Like I said earlier, left unchecked, it can lead to very unintentional physical ramifications. And sometimes, I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but I do have friends, frankly, that during seasons of burnout have taken their own life. They didn't have to, right? But they just felt like, I'm just so burned out. I feel no passion in my life. I'm so empty. All I'm doing, I feel completely drained all the time, you know? So I don't want to keep bring everyone down, but this is a serious, like I said, this is a serious topic. So consider therapy if I think everyone should do therapy. That's my thing.
You know, it might be a good idea for us to do an episode in the future of how do you really find a therapist? Because, you know, we've talked about do therapy. We've talked about that in multiple masterminds. You know, I just heard it the other day. Well, what kind of therapist? How do you find somebody? How do you know that they are aligned with you? What is the best approach? So I think that'd be a good episode for us.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this experientially from my own experience. I had to shop around.
Yeah.
I went to a few before I finally found someone who wasn't just didn't want to hear about, you know, old Green Beret stories. They, you know, oh, that must be so cool jumping out of airplanes. Like, I'm not here to entertain you, dude. You know, go read a book. You want to learn about that stuff.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we speak of therapy. There is a really good form of self-therapy that can work for a lot of folks, and that's journaling.
Dude, to be honest with you, I'm in therapy right now, right? I mean, for those who don't know, my son passed away just, 2 months ago. And it's one of the things he wants me to be doing is journaling, writing letters, getting things out. And I just know this from writing books. The more you actually write, the clearer your thoughts become.
Yes.
Right? Because sometimes your brain is just spinning, Dave. I think journaling is really important. And I think there's a couple types of journaling I would recommend to people. One is the idea of journaling, just getting things out, just free-forming, streams of thoughts and consciousness. Well, I guess there's a few. Another is actually writing letters to people. Now, don't send them, please don't send them yet. And then maybe burning them, But another is a gratitude journal. It is a separate, almost, what's the word? I'm looking for a word. It's almost like this, not holy book, but it's this thing that is just, it's a precious book. Only good thoughts get written in that, right? Like my gratitude journal is a beautiful leather journal. I love the feel of the pages. I got a special pen that I write in it. I take my time. My handwriting is much neater, and because it's precious to me. My other journal is they're just notebooks. I was gonna say I got a pile of stuff falling off my desk here. I'll just show you right here what it is. It's just one of these. And it is just scribble marks, and sometimes little drawings and those types of things. But it's, for me, even to go back and read what I wrote last week, sometimes it's hard for me to read. It's just getting it out of my head. Yeah. But the gratitude journal to me is much more precious. That's what I do. You do whatever you want. But I think journaling is a good tool as well to help you with either deal with or even avoid burnout.
Yeah, those are some great tips. Just recently, I was feeling overwhelmed, which is not the same as burnout.
That's right.
But I was feeling overwhelmed, and we talked about that in episode 108. So go back if you want to hear how to deal with that.
How do you remember this stuff, dude? Okay, it was 108. We're on 129 now. Okay, go ahead. 108.
Okay, Larry, plug your ears. Larry, plug your ears.
What?
I look it up.
Oh, okay.
I search on YouTube for our own stuff.
Shocking.
That's my secret.
Right. Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah. So I journaled and that helped out. Now it was more of a free form one, but that helped me with overwhelm. And Larry, as you were talking, it's kind of weird thinking about it was a form of journaling. I don't know if like at church services and stuff, sometimes they ask you to, write something down that's holding you back. You write it down on a piece of paper, and then they do various forms. Well, sometimes we've actually written it on a rock or taped it to a rock and thrown it in a lake. But a lot of times we'll write it on a piece of paper around like on Good Friday and then nail it to the cross, you know, that's there in the service. That's a form of journaling.
We've done it in masterminds before, where you write the things that are holding you back or have been plaguing you. You write it on a board.
That's all right. We did.
You break the board, right?
Yeah.
We've done that countless times over the years. Yeah.
That's fun. That's actually an image from the video of me doing that is actually my my screen image on my computer.
Yeah. By the way, we use 1-inch boards, not the little fake balsa boards that some of these people do, right? And we've had tiny little people do it, right?
Yeah, I remember.
I can think of one person who it took about 10 times to try it, but she did not give up.
She did not. It was powerful. It was,
and when she finally did it, I heard that when she and her husband do talks, they still refer.
They do. We do. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's
pretty cool.
Yeah. So journaling is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and we talked about a little bit about, you know, the personal and the work often, interlapping, cross boundaries and all of that.
Yeah.
So all I can do that, but regarding that, all those different areas physically, and keeping ourselves physically healthy, and we can talk about a bunch of stuff, and we don't want to go into detail because that's not what this is about. But keeping yourself physically healthy is so important to avoid burnout.
You're a good role model for me in a couple of areas. Like, you regularly exercise.
Yep.
You take naps daily.
I do.
Right? Sleep hygiene is something. I don't know how you're on the sleep hygiene beyond the naps, but sleep hygiene is so important. I am not great at it just because of the season I'm in my life right now. But we spent a good amount of time in one of our last client calls, Dave, talking about the importance of sleep. You're also pretty good, with a couple of exceptions. Your diet's pretty good, with the exception of dozens of packs of Oreo cookies around your house at any one time, and bowls of candy just about within reach.
Well,
how you stay so fit?
When you come over, you sneak all those too. So we're both getting on it.
I didn't say I didn't. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Well, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I think the key is, you know, is balance. You know, just. Yeah. I mean, typically what I do is on Saturdays, I allow that to be kind of my cheat day.
Yeah. Where
I eat some of the crap. And that works for me.
Well, we do need to, I don't want to like just fluff this off. If all you're putting into your body is Red Bulls and Oreo cookies, you are not fueling your brain or your body effectively.
Yep.
We got to have good amounts of water. You got to have some vegetables. You got to have some clean proteins in your diet for sure. And there's enough of those diet videos out there, and you know, just be smart with what you put into your body.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast about longevity and all that kind of stuff, and I mean, they're talking about how important breakfast is, not to go more than 12 hours between meals. But one of the things that I know that you do and that I do that is so important from the foundation nutritionally is we have our morning smoothies with all kinds of good stuff in them. So that way we know, Larry, no matter what happens during the rest of the day, we've got a really good base of nutrition that's in our body for the whole day, no matter what else happens.
That's what I do. And so I've mentioned this before on some of these podcasts, Dave, or maybe it was just in masterminds, but you're right. I know from a nutritional and vitamin and mineral perspective that I've got enough to keep my body going. Calorically, I'm not getting enough from it, but I do super greens and high quality protein, and I'm taking my supplements, and I'm doing super reds and spirulina and all kinds of stuff and I'm not drinking it for flavor. I'm drinking it for, you know,
nutrition,
the nutritional value that it brings. I've tried to get both my kids to even try it, and it looks so gross. They won't even try. They won't even try it because I put it all in one thing and you know, but it works.
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah, it works. Well, so, you know, one of the things that we kind of wrote down was to never neglect this. I mean, I remember years ago when I was laid off from my corporate job because the company went bankrupt, reading some books about resetting your life in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
The number one piece of advice that they said is exercise. Make sure you don't give up on your exercise. Keep yourself good physically, because that allows you to have this buffer against this extreme mental, emotional stress that you're going through.
All right. We need to spend another minute on this. Okay. There is no reason why you can't do some form of exercise. There isn't. I used all kinds of excuses myself, but I know that I've got the time in the morning, get up before I even go to the bathroom. I could drop down and knock out 10 push-ups.
Yeah.
I could do that, but I don't. Okay.
You do it right now.
Could.
Come on, do it right now.
but I could, and I should do that. And then roll over and do 10 sit-ups. At least do something. I saw an interview with a guy just the other day that was talking about that a recent study showed that if you go out, like before you do anything, you get up and go out and get some sun immediately, that it does something about your energy level. I need to watch it. I've got it saved on YouTube. I need to go back and watch that. And that's what he was saying. He said that what he does is he gets up, and before he goes to the bathroom, he goes outside. He said, even if it's on a hazy day, and he gets down and does a few push-ups, few sit-ups, few flutter kicks, and he gets back up and, walks around his house and then goes back in, and then he does what he needs to do. That's his habit, right? We could all do it. All right. So let's say, Dave, that I'm 400 pounds overweight. Maybe that's not a realistic number. Let's say that I'm 150 pounds overweight. I could still get out and walk.
Yes.
I may be able, like right now, maybe I can't walk to the mailbox. All right. But walk out to the car, then walk back. Walk 50 extra feet the next day. It's all putting one boot in front of the other. We have to do this. It is so vitally important. And when we exercise, endorphins start to kick up in our brains, right? And that helps us get a more positive outlook on life. And you have this sense of accomplishment that you did something today that you didn't do yesterday. And an easy way to track this stuff is just on a lot of these health apps. Most phones today are preloaded with a health app. And I get reminders, hey, you're down 200 steps on average a day than you were last week. Come on, slug, move out, get moving, do something.
Yeah.
There's just a little heart app, on your phone. So there really aren't real excuses for most people. I've got friends, Dave, you've seen some of them, right? Who are like double amputees or been burned over 80% of their body. They're finding ways to do something, right? Something.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of simple tricks. Maybe we should do a podcast on that. But one of them is when you go to park in a parking lot, park farther away or very far away from the entrance. Now, of course, you want to be careful at night and all of that kind of stuff. You want to be careful of your safety. That's not what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But, like when you go to church, park far away. When you go to the grocery store, park farther away in the parking lot and walk. So you can build those kind of things in, those little habits that'll help you to get a few extra, steps in that extra movement, and just a little bit that adds up over time.
Yeah, my friends, we're spending a lot of time on the physical part, and I'm sorry about that, but this is something that you can control. There was that Japanese study that was done, Dave, that showed that optimally we should be taking 10,000 steps a day, and that decreases heart attacks by something like 40. I forget what the number is. It's a lot of percentage points, right? Just by walking 10,000 steps a day. Now, for most people, that's about 5 miles, right? This over the course of a day. And the study showed it didn't even matter whether you did it all at once or just over the course.
Oh, yeah.
But it's actually getting the movement in. We should keep going or else we're going to be stuck on physical all day.
One more really quick.
Okay.
I think I just thought of, you're in your office or you're at home and you have to go use the bathroom. Well, go walk to the farthest bathroom in the house. To go. Why not? That's a few extra steps. Maybe go down the stairs. Maybe go up the stairs to do that. That'll get you some extra movement. Okay. I think we're done with that.
Beat the horse. Yeah.
Well, I think the next thing that we want to talk about might be a little bit more drastic, and we've got to put some caveats on there.
Okay.
So, and this can work for some folks, is maybe you have to do something a little bit more drastic. Like I mentioned, is considering a change in your career or your job. maybe you just have to get that new environment,
yeah,
a new profession.
yeah.
Maybe that's what's going to be, that'll help you.
It might be dramatic, but let's say that it's your job. You may be working in a toxic work environment that is just sucking your lifeblood.
Yeah.
You know, the great thing about, as we're taping this or recording this thing today, there are employers begging for team members. I've seen really crappy team members leave an organization or be fired from an organization and be hired the next day making more money than they were making before. There is a shortage of good team members out there. Please be courageous if this is what you're feeling. Okay. So there's that. So it's like no fault of your own, but you're in a toxic environment. But let's say that you're in a career that you went to school for and you got a degree in it, and you're now 45 years old and it's just, the passion's not there. Well, so what? People change. Your interests change over time. Start trying to learn something new. This can help you avoid burnout as well. So start thinking about, Dave, I'm not going to quit my job today. Is that what you tell me, Dave? Should I quit my job today? No, you're not saying that. But start considering it. So let's say that you're a computer programmer and you've realized, hey, I'm not the type of person that can sit in front of a computer all day. I need to be doing something else. And I don't know, pick something else. Start getting trained, get some experience in whatever, something else that interests you, that's a little more physically demanding, where you're actually interacting with people. Who knows? But again, a lot of these things take courage, Dave. I keep using that word, but it's important, because it's easy, Dave, for us we know the amount of pain and slings and arrows that are coming at us. And sometimes we just kind of, all right, so this is the known. At least I know the environment that I'm in. The fear of the unknown paralyzes people sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we always encourage people, go try something new. Do you remember the exercise that we did, Dave, at a couple of masterminds, where we had people list a bunch of things that you're afraid of?
Oh,
Snakes, speaking in public, meeting new people, reptiles, I don't know, whatever it was. We listed it. And then do you remember what the next step was, Dave? Yep. What did we do? We assigned accountability partners, and they had to go out and do it.
Do what they're most afraid of. Yeah.
Right. And so there were people who went to the local reptile store and held snakes, or scorpions, or people went out and they had an accountability partner and had to go meet people in a local mall. Right. Somebody had to go do a little impromptu speech. Right. And everyone came back, without exception, feeling more courageous and bold than they had before.
Yep.
Afraid of heights, so they went up to the top of a building.
Yeah.
Doing those kinds of things helps you recognize, I actually do have a little bit of control in my life. It is my self-imposed barricades that I'm putting up in my life that's holding me back sometimes.
Yeah. And I think one of those self-imposed barriers is, like you mentioned, at a particular age, 45, it's like, oh, a career change. You think, oh man, I'm throwing away those 20 years or whatever it is, 25 years. But, nowadays, people are going to be working their careers, if they want to, into their 80s, right? So even you and me, we're 60-ish. We got 20 really good years left, given health and how we're taking care of ourselves and all that. We got 20 good years. Yeah, that's plenty of time to even start a new career if you want.
That's right. And really make an impact on the world. But don't be reflexive on this stuff. Because Dave said, go get a new job. In the recovery world, we use this thing called HALT, right? Don't make big decisions when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Okay. So because the boss was a jerk to you today, or there was a client who pissed you off, don't make a decision because and to boot, you haven't eaten since last night. Make sure that you're not hungry, angry, lonely, or tired when you make these big life-changing decisions.
Yep.
Okay. Dave, we have gone through a lot, and we had a little preamble in the beginning. I wonder if we ought to wrap this up and come back and do part 2 now, or do you feel like we ought to do another one? I'm open to whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I think we need to go into a part 2, because it makes it easier for us to chunk these down a little bit for folks.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of draw to people to hang around for the next one, right? Let's be honest, right?
Good.
Okay. Well, so I think we'll do a quicker review. That's the ones that we recovered, the ones we covered.
You remember them?
Yeah. So we talked about, well, it's because I have notes, I'll be honest, right? So we talked about really what burnout was and how to start recognizing the signs of it, right? We talked about that. And some of the ways to avoid it is, great friendships. We talked about that. And great friendships where you could be honest with folks. We talked about looking at some of your other relationships in your life. Maybe those are the things that are causing you to really feel that burnout. We talked a little bit about therapy. We discussed journaling, and then Larry really went through a lot of really good different ways to journal, like a thank you or gratitude journal, or just sitting and writing stuff down. All of that's cool. We even talked about some with, how we do things with the church has done in the past.
Yeah.
We talked about, looking at your personal life and your work life and how those things can cross and multiple aspects of your life, how one of those areas that you may be falling short in affects the other. Now, one of those areas that we also talked about was physically. We went a lot into keeping yourself physically healthy.
Yeah.
With Larry mentioned sleep hygiene, how important that is. I mean, that's huge for hormone regulation, everything. We talked about exercise, diet, and all that.
Weight control. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we kind of finished up with a quick discussion on changing careers, potentially. Now, even though Larry says to go change your career, quit right now. No. But there's a big caveat on changing your career. Really, really put some thought into it. Make sure it's the right thing to do. And that it's not something else that's causing you to feel this this burnout. So go ahead, Larry.
Yeah. You say this. Thanks for keeping notes on this and keeping us on track. I encourage people stick around or watch this. We've got another part 2 coming up on this, but we really appreciate you folks. I'd love to hear from you. If you're still hanging around with us, that means this is important to you. In the comment section, what are you doing to avoid burnout? What tips or lessons have you learned? How has burnout affected you and your life? We're always looking for topics and discussion ideas for future episodes. So go ahead and drop them in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think before we sign off, the final thing that I would say is, you may be like the most enthused person at your work. You may be just loving it and everything, but it can start switching around if you're not careful to adopt. If you're not careful and don't adopt some of the things that we talked about. So make some of these things a regular part of your life to keep you from getting burned out. Look at them as preventative medication in a way. Right.
Good.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, being part of this. This is really fun. But remember, building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom. We are going to talk about how that helps you avoid burnout as well. But we are here to help you with our course and community and our white glove service, where we find a rock star VA virtual assistant, virtual assistant for you. But 3 things we'd love for you to do right now, and we'd really appreciate it. Number 1, subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already done so, either on your iPhone or your Android phone, and on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button. Click on the little bell to get reminders. And then number 2, give us a rating, preferably 5-star. Leave a comment below this video, as Larry mentioned, an idea, a question, anything, because it helps to get the word out. And then number 3, go to HireMyVA.com for more information on what I just mentioned, our course and community and our white glove service. Because remember, even without experience, you'll learn how to prepare for, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. Larry and I have helped lots of folks. We just had a great Q&A last week. And, we want you to be a part of our tribe too, and come on, we want to help you. So just go to HireMyVA.com for more information.
Hey, one of the things that will help you avoid burnout is doing things that actually lead to significance in the life of your family, your community, your workplace. So do yourself a favor, do the world a favor. Go do something significant today. All right, my friends, God bless you, God keep you, and God hold you. We'll see you the next time for part 2 of this. All right.
Okay. Bye everybody.